The lights of the America's Got Talent stage glowed bright that night, and the air inside the studio buzzed with excitement. The crowd murmured softly, cameras panned over excited faces, and the judges leaned forward, waiting for the next act. Simon Cowell adjusted his seat, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Beside him, Sofia Vergara smiled, while Howie Mandel cracked a small joke with Heidi Klum. No one had any idea that the next performer would take them on a journey back in time, to the golden age of rock and roll, and leave everyone in absolute disbelief. The stage door opened quietly. A thin man walked out nervously, holding a microphone in both hands. He looked ordinary, wearing a simple white shirt, black pants, and worn-out shoes. His name tag read, Jerson, Philippines. He wasn't tall, nor did he carry himself like a celebrity. But there was something in his eyes, a quiet fire, a dream that had kept him alive for years. The crowd clapped politely, not expecting much. He smiled awkwardly and gave a small nod toward the judges. Simon spoke first, his British accent cutting through the silence. "Hello there. What's your name, sir?" "My name is Jerson, sir. I come from the Philippines," he replied softly, his accent humble but clear. Simon nodded. "And what will you be doing for us tonight?" "I'll be singing, sir." "But, it's a bit different," he said nervously. Heidi leaned forward, curious. "Different how?" He hesitated, smiled, and said, "I'll try to bring someone special back tonight." A few people chuckled lightly. Simon squinted, his curiosity growing. "Someone special. All right, Jerson, the stage is yours. Show us what you've got." The lights dimmed. The screen behind him glowed blue, then faded into warm orange hues like an old jukebox coming to life. The familiar slow strum of a guitar filled the air, a melody almost everyone recognized but couldn't yet name. Jerson closed his eyes. His hand trembled slightly as he held the microphone. Then, he took a deep breath and opened his mouth. The first note hit, and it was like time stopped. A deep, velvety voice rolled through the speakers, rich and hauntingly familiar. The tone, the vibrato, the rhythm, it was Elvis Presley. The king himself. Simon's eyebrows shot up. Sofia gasped audibly. The crowd fell silent for a moment before a ripple of shock spread through them. It wasn't an imitation. It wasn't a parody. It was as if Elvis had somehow come back and was standing right there on that AGT stage. Jerson sang, "Can't Help Falling in Love," and with each word, the atmosphere thickened with emotion. His voice carried both power and soul, raw and aching. People began to sway, some holding their hands to their chests. A few in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. By the time he reached the chorus, the crowd couldn't hold back anymore. They erupted in cheers, cameras flashed, and even the judges were smiling. Simon leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the stage, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. When Jerson finished the song, he didn't move for a moment. The last note lingered in the air, echoing through the silent hall. Then the crowd exploded in applause. People stood up, clapping, shouting, and cheering his name. Jerson, Jerson, Jerson. He looked shocked. He had never experienced anything like this in his life. Tears welled up in his eyes. Simon finally spoke, his voice low and measured. "Jerson, what on earth just happened?" The audience laughed, but everyone leaned in to hear what Jerson would say. He wiped his eyes and said, "Sir, Elvis has been my idol since I was a kid. My father used to play his songs every night. We lived in a small house, and I learned to sing by listening to his records. My father passed away 2 years ago. Tonight, I just wanted to make him proud." A deep silence filled the room again. Simon's face softened. Sofia pressed her hands to her heart. "That was one of the most unbelievable voices I have ever heard," Simon said slowly. "You sounded exactly like Elvis. But more than that, you sang with heart. That's what makes it special." The crowd roared again. Heidi added, "You didn't just sing like him, you brought his spirit to life." "That was beautiful." Howie stood up and clapped loudly. "You know what I think, Jerson. Elvis would be proud of you." Tears rolled down Jerson's cheeks as he whispered, "Thank you, sir." Simon smiled faintly. "You know what, let's not wait. I'm giving you a yes, a big yes." The other judges followed with their yeses, one after another. When the fourth yes was declared, Jerson covered his face and cried. The crowd's cheers filled the hall, echoing off the walls. It was more than just a performance. It was a resurrection of a legend through the voice of a humble man from the Philippines. Backstage, he hugged the staff, still trembling with emotion. My father used to tell me, he said to the camera crew, if you sing with love, people will feel it. I think, tonight, he heard me. But that wasn't the end. The video of his audition went viral overnight. Within 24 hours, it had over 20 million views. People around the world couldn't believe what they were hearing. Comments flooded in, "The king is back. This guy reincarnated Elvis." I cried the whole time. Radio stations across the Philippines and the US started playing clips of his performance. News outlets picked up the story. Suddenly, Jerson, who used to perform at small cafes in Manila for spare change, was being invited to talk shows and interviews. When he returned for the semifinals, expectations were sky high. The AGT studio was packed, the energy electric. The judges looked genuinely excited when he walked back on stage. Simon smiled at him and said, "You've got the world watching you now, Jerson. What's the plan for tonight?" Jerson took a deep breath and said, "Tonight, I'll sing one of Elvis's most emotional songs, but I'll sing it my way." The lights dimmed again. This time, the background showed a soft golden glow with a slow heartbeat of drums. He began with, "If I Can Dream." His voice, though still carrying that unmistakable Elvis timbre, had something different this time, a touch of his own soul, his story, his struggle. It wasn't just mimicry anymore. It was transformation. Simon watched, leaning forward, eyes slightly glassy. The performance built like a storm, and when Jerson reached the line, "There must be peace and understanding sometime," the audience rose to their feet, clapping along in rhythm. By the end, the entire hall was standing. Even Simon stood up, and for a rare moment, he clapped slowly, smiling. That, he said after the crowd quieted down, was a winning performance. Sophia added, "You gave us goosebumps again. You are not just an Elvis impersonator, you're an artist." Howie nodded. "And that's what this show is about. Taking something we think we've seen before, and making it brand new." Jerson's face glowed with gratitude. He bowed deeply, whispering, "Thank you, everyone." As he walked off stage, he called his mother in the Philippines, tears streaming down his face. "Ma, they stood for me, even Simon." She laughed and cried at the same time through the phone. "Your papa must be dancing up there." Finals night arrived. The air buzzed with tension and excitement. Jerson walked onto the stage wearing a sleek white suit, almost identical to Elvis's iconic 1973 Aloha outfit. The lights shimmered like stars above him. Simon looked at him and said, "You've given us two incredible performances already. How are you feeling tonight?" He smiled softly. "Sir, whatever happens, I'm already a winner. This is for my country, and for my father." The music began, a stripped-down acoustic version of "Suspicious Minds." The first few notes sent chills through the audience. This time, Jerson's performance felt different. It wasn't about sounding like Elvis anymore. It was about everything he'd been through, the late nights, the hunger, the dreams that refused to die. He sang with every ounce of emotion he had. The audience could feel it. The judges could feel it. And when he hit the final note, the crowd exploded louder than ever before. Tears streamed down his face as he stood frozen in the center of the stage, soaking in the standing ovation. Simon stood up again and said simply, "You've done something very few can do, Jerson. You've honored a legend, and you've become one yourself." The night ended with everyone talking about him. Social media lit up again. The Filipino Elvis just made AGT history. He deserves to win. Simon Cowell cried, "That says it all." The votes came in, and though Jerson didn't win the grand prize, he won something far greater, the hearts of millions. Offers poured in from music producers and event organizers. He was invited to perform in Las Vegas, Memphis, and even Graceland itself. Months later, Jerson stood in front of Elvis Presley's mansion in Memphis, wearing the same white suit. A small group had gathered to hear him sing. He closed his eyes, placed his hand over his heart, and softly began to sing, "Love Me Tender." His voice floated gently through the air. It wasn't about imitation anymore, it was about legacy. When he finished, an elderly man from the crowd walked up to him, tears in his eyes. "Son," he said, "I saw Elvis perform live in 1972. Tonight, I felt that same magic again. Thank you." Jerson smiled humbly. "Thank you, sir. I just sing what I feel. And I think Elvis taught us all to do that." Later that night, as he sat alone by the river, he took out an old photo of his father holding a broken guitar. He whispered, "We made it, Papa. We really did." The story of Jerson, the Filipino Elvis, spread across the world. He began performing internationally, always starting his concerts by dedicating a song to his father and to Elvis. In one show in Tokyo, fans held up signs saying, "Long live the king," and his new voice. In interviews, he remained humble. "I'm not trying to replace Elvis," he'd say with a smile. "I just want to keep his spirit alive, and share my own heart through his songs." He eventually returned to the AGT stage as a guest performer 2 years later. The audience screamed when they saw him. Simon greeted him with a handshake and said, "Welcome back, Elvis." This time, he performed a medley, blending Elvis's greatest hits with a Filipino folk song at the end. The result was mesmerizing. It was the sound of two worlds, past and present, America and the Philippines, united through one voice. When he finished, Simon stood up again, clapping. "You've done something remarkable," he said. "You've proven that true talent comes from the soul, and tonight, you've shown us yours." Jerson smiled and looked out at the audience, thousands of faces cheering and waving. In that moment, he knew his dream had come true, not because he sounded like Elvis, but because he had found his own voice inside that sound. He looked up at the ceiling, as if speaking to someone far above. "This one's for you, Papa, and for the king." The band played him off with a soft instrumental of "Can't Help Falling in Love," and as the lights dimmed, the world applauded not just a singer, but a story, one of faith, talent, and the magic of never giving up. Even long after the show ended, fans continued to share clips of his performances. People from around the world, from Tennessee to Manila, commented about how a man from a small island could make the entire planet feel something so powerful. He didn't need to win the trophy. He had already won the hearts of millions. His journey from a tiny karaoke stage in the Philippines to the grand lights of America's Got Talent became a symbol of hope. And somewhere, in that warm golden glow of the AGT stage, the spirit of Elvis Presley seemed to smile too. Because sometimes, legends don't just die, they live again through voices that carry the same fire, love, and soul. And Jerson's voice had become one of them.